You know, if I didn't know any better, I'd swear they've all been listening to the show. Good morning to you. Good Friday morning. I'm Dejan Kovacevic of DK Pittsburgh Sports, and this is Daily Shot of Penguins. It comes your way bright and early every weekday. If you're into football and/or baseball, I also offer daily shots of Steelers and Pirates in the same place that you found this. And no, the Steelers and the Pirates don't listen to these shows either. But man, Penguins 4, Avalanche 0, and it's not the outcome that impressed. It's the thoroughness. It's the near perfection, I dare say, that the Penguins put forth on the ice last night at PPG Paints Arena that really just, it floored me. It floored me. I knew they could do it. And as those of you who actually have been listening to the show can attest, I knew what they'd need to do in order to do it. I just didn't think it would be a violent U-turn like that. That's a 180. That's everything that they weren't doing through the first 6 games on display in reverse. It was amazing. It actually was amazing. And I'm only saying that partially because Colorado comes in, 6-0 start, 15-game road winning streak, which they were claiming was the longest in NHL history, which of course doesn't count because you don't stretch records over between seasons, but they were saying it, so it sounded like a big deal. And of course the Avs come in with all the wholly legit stars, Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, Mikko Rantanen, right down the list. And that happened. The Penguins went to the front of the net. The Penguins drove deep into the Colorado zone. The Penguins executed plays in the direction of either the slot or the net as opposed to back to the point. The Penguins positioned themselves for redirects and rebounds. The Penguins had human bodies near Alexander Georgiev's crease, sometimes in the crease, sometimes in Georgiev's kitchen. Already, I didn't know who they were. And in the other end, I don't even know where to start. Now, on one hand, I feel like I should preface it by saying that Colorado was all kinds of stupid last night. And I'm sure this is not how they played in winning their first 6 games, but there are 2 teams out there, and the Avs forwards just repeatedly tried to stick handle through the Penguins, setting up a clothesline across the blue line. And I know it's what you saw from the Penguins 2 nights earlier, but it didn't work for them either. And the Penguins would just take the puck from them, double team usually whoever it was that was carrying, and just spit it right back. Or better yet, the way Brian Reynolds sent it up to Evgeny Malkin for a 2-on-1 with Riley Smith. There comes Smith's second goal, the period, boom, just like that. And you're on your way because your defense was the top priority. And because your defense was the top priority, it was able to lead to offense. I asked Smith about this very thing afterward.
I think we wanted to try to simplify our game. Obviously, they have a good team and they're going to create opportunities. I think Jars did a really good job shutting the door. They had some pretty good looks, especially on some of their power plays, and he's able to make a save without any rebounds. It changes the game.
The rest of the defending was no less diligent. The Penguins weren't, how do I put this? I don't think they were super invested in both ends of the ice throughout, particularly not over the last 30, 35 minutes of the game. But they never stopped being 100% in on defending. They filled the middle of the ice, the good ice, as Mike Sullivan was saying afterward. they made sure that the Avs, whatever they were going to get, they were going to have to get from the outside. And along the way, in doing everything that they did offensively, in doing everything that they did defensively and protecting the good ice and protecting the blue paint and everything else, they did one other thing that really leaped out at me. And that was what's known as tracking back. The Penguins forwards, man, I can't, listen, I'm going to pause here to really accentuate this point. I can't emphasize this one strongly enough. When these Penguins, under this coach, in this system, are at their best, it's when their forwards are tracking back. And if you don't know what that means, I'll explain it in the simplest possible terms. You've lost possession. You're heading back toward your zone. But your forwards go back just as hard as your defensemen. And what they do is they ideally catch up quickly enough to pressure somebody to either turning the puck over or at least forcing them into your defenseman. But they don't feel comfortable the way the Penguins' first 6 opponents did. They don't just la-di-da through the neutral zone and into your zone the way the Penguins' first 6 opponents did. I brought this up with Sullivan.
Yeah, it's such a big part of defense is just having numbers and pushing the rush into our defensemen. I think it makes it easier for our D to establish the gaps that they need to establish in order to defend the rushes. And when you track hard, you can put a lot of pressure on your opponents on the entries. I thought we forced a lot of turnovers and were able to counterattack. When I say we would create a lot of offense off our defense, that's one of the areas that's an important aspect of it, where when you track hard and you have numbers back, you limit teams' ability to create off the rush. And this team in particular is very dynamic, and with the type of defensemen that they have and some of the forwards and the skill that they have up front, they can be a handful off the rush. But I thought our guys really committed to playing the right way in that aspect of the game.
Sounds like a happy coach, huh? It's been a while. When we come back, J1Q. Today's J1Q comes from CT, who says, boy, I love this. Can the Penguins play like that every game? Please. My answer, of course, is no. Not to be that guy. And, to take a dump all over what they just achieved. But no, they can't. There is a reason that this team only performs a certain way in certain situations. I don't believe that reason can be manufactured. I don't believe that the circumstance can be created that causes them to respond this way. They were 2-4. They were in danger of being 2-5. And while that's not the end of the world in an 82-game season, it sure is a rotten start. And as I was noting before the game to you guys, it's a bigger hill to climb than if you go 2-5 at some other point in the season. Why? Well, obviously the math is the same, but there's a different effect on any team when they either start very well or start very poorly, because it's the only thing you have. It's the only precedent you have. It's the only cause to either believe or not believe in what you're doing. And when Sullivan and Riley Smith and Chris Letang and Tristan Jarry and several other players spoke afterward about this being, I'm going to use their term, not mine, an important win, that's what they meant. They weren't referring to the math. They were referring to what it is that they needed to move on to the next game, to try to use everything that they just did as a template. So will it work? every time? Will they be able to pull off this type of play or this level of play every time? Of course not. Will they face an opponent that, this is going to sound dumb, okay? But hear me out. The Senators are coming. They're next. The Senators don't play like this. The Senators don't play like the Avs do. The Senators are going to come flying at you. They're going to dump and bang, and they're going to crash, and they're going to make some noise. The Avs, to say this one more time, were really, really stupid in this game. And you're not going to face teams, no matter how talented they are, that are going to be stupid like that very often. They just handed the Penguins the puck so many times, skating into that blue line, and they would never, ever, ever dump it. Never, ever, ever chip and chase, nothing. Senators aren't going to do that. So the Senators, that's not to say that the Senators are a tougher team, okay? Obviously. It's to say that they'll present a different challenge and require you to react differently if you're the Penguins. But one of the points that Sullivan made, that I thought was kind of interesting and not really like him, not something that he says very often, is that the Penguins are going to have to win different ways. They're going to have to apply different principles, not different system, not shifts in the system, but just to think differently. And against the Avs, they did absolutely everything right. And no, CT, that's not a recipe. Perfection is not a recipe for anyone. But if you think of it, if you think of what the Penguins did last night from the standpoint of a foundation of defending first and having the defense lead to turnovers and having the turnovers lead to Gino, to Riley Smith for a goal, it starts to make a little bit more sense. They have to be back. They have to be back en masse. They have to defend their slot area and their blue paint the way they did last night. From there, a lot of good things can happen through simple osmosis. No one needed to give Gino instructions on how to completely own the Colorado defenseman and the Colorado goaltender on that 2-on-1. Which, by the way, Riley Smith was telling me afterward, he was just floored by it. I mean, obviously, Smith's played with some pretty good players over the years, including in Las Vegas, but not a Gino. But Gino doesn't need any help in that regard. Gino can just do that stuff. Where they need to put it all together, the consistency that you're looking for, CT, that's got to happen in the Pittsburgh zone, regardless of opponent, regardless of the direness of the circumstance. I appreciate the question. I appreciate everybody listening to Daily Shot of Penguins. Happy to end this week on an upbeat note. It hasn't been a great start for the franchise, but we'll see where they take it Saturday and for the rest of this homestand. And we'll be back here on Monday.